homeland, about policing in the United States, about slavery, about what they did to my native ancestors. And no, they don't like me. My books are CRT before I even finish writing them. And, you know, I mean, it would do well for Black folks to read some books, you know, because some of us want to stand with the white people and talk about, you talk about stuff that shouldn't be talked about. No, I talk about stuff that needs to be talked about, because we are still slaves as long as our minds are enslaved. We're not free, you know, and I just, you know, that moved me to again see, I've seen that before, but to see the mother, and I totally identify with her, and I identify with what Dorsey was saying. I'm 76 years old. It's, you know, and I'm ready. Whenever it's time, you know, for me to leave here, I'm ready. But guess what? I got a granddaughter who just started university, and she calls herself BLM JL. Now, that's the next generation. And we're rising up a mighty generation. We're going to be free. We're going to be free. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, sis. We appreciate that. Right now, I'm going to read an article. All of us, of course, many of you guys know that we publish a monthly newspaper. We actually circulate this newspaper on the inside to all our members that are on the inside. And I'm going to read you a brief excerpt from one of the articles that's in there. All right. Black August is a powerful month sinking deeply into the history of liberation of Black Americans, political prisoners, and the pursuit of freedom. August collectively holds a wealth of Black history and revolutionary struggle. What may be most significant, though, is the amplification of voices that the prison industrial complex attempts to erase. The catalyst for Black August stems from George Jackson's rebellion and eventual assassination in San Quentin State Prison in 1971. Jackson had been incarcerated for 10 years in a 1-year-to-life sentence for his affiliation with a gas station robbery when he was 20 years old. For the rest of his short life, he was forced from freedom as his parole was regularly denied. He was punished to several years of solitary confinement, racism, and strenuous labor for little to no pay, akin to slavery. Despite this, Jackson embodied the revolutionary spirit and was self-educated by reading a variety of texts, co-led study groups, published books, and co-founded the Black Guerrilla Family. Between 1970 and his death in 1971, a series of intense events catapulted Jackson's revolutionary tendencies. At CTF Soledad in 1970, a white guard callously killed 3 Black men during a minor conflict. Several days later, a different white guard was found beaten to death, and although no one admitted to the act, 3 men, including Jackson, were charged with the murder. Dubbed the Soledad Brothers, the whole nation watched their case. Many criticized the charge for jumping to conclusions because the men were political figures. Eventually, Jackson transferred to San Quentin while his case pursued. On August 7, 1970, Jackson's brother, Jonathan, with radical inspiration from his sibling, decided to avenge his brother's indictment by storming into a Marin County courthouse and kidnapping the judge. Although his goal was to create enough pressure to acquit the Soledad brothers, Jonathan was killed at the scene along with 3 others. It is no doubt that George Jackson is a powerful figure, influencing those around him while alive and after his death. His final act is the landmark of Black August, inspiring incarcerated people, organizers, and activists. On August 21st, 1971 in San Quentin, Jackson pulled out a pistol, unlocked several prisoner cells, and held correctional officers and a few white prisoners hostage. He then found the keys to the exit and sprinted to escape. Before he could escape, George Jackson was shot and killed mid-sprint. Jackson's incredible persistence and passion for the liberation of his incarcerated siblings and of the greater country sparked an ever-growing number of events and emotions while correctional officers and the greater carceral system brutally hindered his escape in spirit. It sparked a movement that still continues over 50 years later. Jackson's political influence empowered many and posed a threat to the prison industrial complex. After his death, CDCR banned his books from the prison system. You gotta scroll up for me. There you go. There you go. They feared his words would encourage revolt. Even with attempts at beginning his powerful words, several weeks later, over 1,500 incarcerated people at Attica State Prison in New York rebelled, uplifting a list of demands in their manifesto and taking control of the prison for 4 days. Now known as the Attica Prison Riots, some of the demands were a proper diet, an end to censorship, and an improvement in education programs. The right to bodily autonomy in labor and incarceration was and still is today a national and international political struggle. Black August represents this determination. The month is full to the brim of historical anniversaries that began even before George Jackson's revolt. On August 14, 1791, the Haitian Revolt erupted, and it was the first successful in the colonial revolution. On August 11, 1965, the Watts Rebellion began in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles in response to the police murdering Marquette Frye during a traffic stop. It eventually developed into a riot against police brutality and poor economic conditions. Finally, in August, we celebrate the births of revolutionaries such as Black Panther Deputy Chairman Fred Hampton and Pan-Africanist leader Marcus Garvey. It goes without saying that this month deserves to be commemorated and a reminder of the ongoing movement to liberate our incarcerated community members. Now published in his book, Soledad Brothers, Jackson wrote a letter to his lawyer on April 17, 1970, where he accurately displays his poor conditions, specifically on how his basic needs, food and hygiene, were tied to forced labor for few to no pay. He writes, "The sense and meaning of slavery comes to a result of our ties to the wage. You must have it. Without it, you would starve or expose yourself to the element. One's entire day centers around the acquisition of the wage. In California prisons, people are demanded under law to work or face repercussions such as an extended sentence for loss in privileges. These job assignments are performed for cents on the hour without any days for sickness or injuries." Lorraine Austin, currently incarcerated at Central California Women's Facility, describes her experience as dark. "I have worked in fabrics, silkscreen, and dental, and each job has its own dangerous exposures. You do skilled work that makes a profit, sometimes working long hours to meet deadlines with a pay grade of 35 cents. These jobs put you at risk to lose fingers and damage your eyesight and expose you daily to cancer-causing agents. This skill you gain at these jobs would be useful in the free world and would be great pay if they were transferable. Inmates that work these jobs should at least be able to pay their restitution or obtain their basic hygiene to comply with CDCR grooming standards." To this point, Jackson writes, "Slavery is an economic condition. The classical chattel and today's neo-slavery must be defined first in terms of economics. The chattel is a property. One man exercising the property rights of his established economic order, the other man as that property. This is where we are at presently. History is not in the past and the present.